talk about a ball out of the blue. I mean, I don't know about you, Doug, but so easily we can fall into the trap of thinking like we have all the time in the world, right? There's a fine line between rushing and being urgent, getting things done, but then letting life pass you by.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Tim, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Very well indeed. Lots of exciting things going on.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Well, Tim, you had an interesting conversation topic you wanted to bring to the table. Go for it.
Diving straight in. Let's do it. Kind of befitting of the topic of the title of the podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. So about a year ago, I was watching a 60-second video clip of Gary Vee on Facebook. And he said something that slammed the brakes on my day. I mean, it even sparked a little mini panic attack. But shortly after I took the panic off, it really stoked a fire under my ass that continues to, whenever I think about it, continues to fuel me to this day. So I want to share this quick concept with you, Doug, and also the listeners, and let's dive into it. So it starts with Gary Vee riding the back seat of a car. And his driver was slowly edging his way forward, trying to maneuver through, you see those videos of him, right, when he's in the crowded streets of New York. So he was edging his way forward, and he'd just come from delivering a speech, an event. So the sidewalk was lined with, tons of young entrepreneurs running alongside the car, shouting questions, asking for advice. If you've seen his videos, you know how it works. And eventually, he stopped at a red light, and he rolls the window down to answer a question while he waits for the light to turn green. And the first question hurled at him went something like this. I think it was, Gary, give me 3 words that will motivate me. So I know we've all been taught there's no such thing as stupid questions, but, when I first heard this, I thought, come on. I mean, what a waste of a question. But anyway, what he said just hit me. And he said, "You will die."
Ooh.
And it was not at all the answer that I was expecting to hear. And shortly after the video ended, so you couldn't really see the expression of the guy that asked the question either. But I imagine it will have, hit him as hard as it hit me. I mean, you will die. I mean,
it's profound.
Talk about a ball out of the blue. I mean, I don't know about you, Doug, but so easily we can fall into the trap of thinking like we have all the time in the world, right? And there's a fine line between rushing and being urgent, getting things done, but then letting life pass you by. How do you dance with this concept? Do you ever think about this?
Yeah, I actually think about it quite often. I shouldn't say quite often, but several times a month, I actually think about that idea, of living life to its fullest and to the moment. And transparently, and I don't want to go into the whole story here because to respect the person's privacy, but Tim, you and I know a businessman, and his whole family was taken away from him, like kidnapped, taken away from him. And that also emphasizes the fragility of life and of time that we have on this earth with each other, with ourselves. And so it gives you an interesting dance, right? So to speak, as you said, of how do you do it? So one of the things I have it on my, this is going to give everybody insight into me, but every week as one of my tasks, it sends a question to me. And actually I have several questions, but one of the questions that comes back is around this topic, right? Am I living my life to its fullest as if this was the last day? And I ask myself that question. I check it off after I ask it, but I'm always constantly in that, not constantly, but in that thought space, in a positive way of how do I live this life, this time, this moment that I have now to its fullest, because this is all we have, right? Is this time, right? This is the time that I'm talking now is the only time that there is for you and for me. And so how do we do this? Now, The difference, I think, is you will die from a way that we teach it and a way that I think that Gary might have taught it. I know it's evolved. Is there used to be a scarcity panic mode involved in that? You will die is like, oh crap, I got to get everything ready, got to do all these things. And actually had a call with one of the guys that's in our group that is experiencing this right now. He is always in a race with time. He's battling time. Got to get this all done. Got to do, go read 6 books this week. Got to get my income up. Got to, get the right girl. Got to do all these things before it's too late. And I think that's one perspective to have. But the way that I look at it, Tim, and the way that we teach it a little bit more with flow, you will die. So get the most out of every moment rather than just hustling. I think it's a big difference.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think we speak a lot about there being a balance, right? There's a balance between, let's say, human doing versus human being, getting things done and taking action. And then having those pauses, those moments in your life when you're able to take a step back and reflect and count those blessings, count your wins. It can be just simple things. Like for me, it might be playing with the dogs. I love it. Maybe it's Amelia going for a hike, watching a sunset, whatever. And it's so true what you're saying, Doug, here, because you will die. For me, when I hear that, you will die, it does 2 things for me. One is it reminds me to be taking inspired action. Again, we speak a lot to the men in the activation method in the Brotherhood about being aligned so they can take inspired action, because when they're in that place, coming from a place of inspiration, then they are going to take the biggest action with the least effort and often bring about the greatest results because it's inspired. Whenever you've been in that place, I'm sure you'll all know, it's a really great place to be. It's effortless. So that's the first side of it. And then the second side of it is to appreciate as well, like you were saying. And appreciation can take on so many forms, right? Gratitude, journaling, just conscious breathing, conscious walking, just being conscious, being present. It can take on so many facets and so many forms that allow you to actually soak in the moment. I'm not saying soak in every single moment because, it's like the balance and the dance between the masculine and the feminine that we often speak about as well. So, there's going to be times in your day where it's going to be, right, let's get some shit done. Let's take some inspired action. Boom. And then it's so important as well for you to have those times in your day when you are able to reflect and refill, whether it's with others or by yourself. So you can appreciate, and it's in that space that things will continue to evolve. Now, as I'm saying this, there is a third element of this that's just popped into my mind, that when I hear you will die, that this is really important, and that is to have really honest conversations.
100%.
Honest conversations with the people that you love. Sharing how you're feeling, sharing anything that may be coming up with you. And I know you do this so well. You teach me so much about this. Because so often, so many things can get either unsaid or misheard, and it can create divides and divisions between people. And that is not a life well lived, is it? And, when you then think of you will die, you then realize you just experience heaviness because you realize you are not living to your fullest because there's a block between you and the other person that you want to have some kind of connection to. One of our primal needs is to have a sense of belonging, isn't it? So we can increase our chances of survival. So it's key to be able to go there and have those conversations.
It absolutely is. And what's interesting, Tim, is, we didn't plan this, but I just had a call with the guys in the Brotherhood, as I do every Tuesday, and we're going over their 90-day game. So they're going to be all in this 90-day game that they will be competing against themselves playfully, but they have points, and we can go into that another time. But, essentially part of this, what I was talking to him about is when you do the rocking chair test, and I know you're familiar with this, Tim, but I'm going to let the listeners know what it is. So guys, the rocking chair test essentially is when you come to a decision in your life that you're having a hard time making. Should I move to UK or should I move to the United States? Whatever it may be. Or should I take that job or should I, stay where I'm secure? Whatever it may be. So the rocking chair test is, what would your answer be in reflection, sitting in a rocking chair in your 80s, sipping on a glass of lemonade or whatever your favorite drink is? So taking, in account, let's just say it's, do I jump ship and start my own business, or do I keep working for the man, so to speak? Well, how would you feel when you're 80, right? What would you say about your decision to start your own business if it failed, right? Or if it was successful? How would you feel at 80 if you said, you know what, I'm just going to stick with security, right? They're two different feelings that you're going to have with that. And so the rocking chair test we were talking about, Tim, is most people, when you do the rocking chair test, the things that they value the most are their relationships. Those are the ones that keep coming up over and over again. When you talk to people, they choose the side in their 80s that values their relationships, that values, their health as well, but also their soul, right? Things for themselves, as we call it, the self, when we do the coil, which is also, by the way, a great reflection tool. So when we look at this and the topic of you will die, I think it's really important to remember those areas of our relationships, but also the relationship with ourself and the so-called bucket lists that all of us carry around, those things that we want to do. I want to learn how to fly a plane. I'll do that someday. I want to go to the Alpha Reset. There's one coming up in December, but yeah, I'll do it I'll do it some other time when I have more money, more time, whatever the excuse is. Whatever it is, Tim, that idea of you will die puts to the forth, do it now. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Stop using money as an excuse. Stop using time as an excuse. Stop allowing fear to run your life and keep procrastinating. And that's really what I get out of that slogan is, how can you be present in the moment, but also really go after life with a zeal and a vigor that pulls you in the direction of your dreams rather than waiting for someday.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
I love it. It reminds me of the Native Americans. I think it's the Native Americans. Whenever they're making a decision, they consider the effect that it will have 7 generations into the future. I was going to say 7 generations into the past and into the future, but obviously the past has been. So it must just be 7 generations into the future. But that's such a great way to think about it, right? Because they're remembering that, look, I am going to die and my legacy, our legacy is going to live on. Now, let's take, for example, the men we work with. I think this is a great example. In fact, I'll use myself as an example. So had I not chosen to do the work on myself to free myself of some of the struggles that were so consistent across my cousins, so my generation, in my family, if you've listened to the show for any time, you will have heard it, heard the story. There's been 3 suicides within our generation. And within that generation as well, there's been a lot of breakdowns in the relationship between my cousins and their parents, my aunties and uncles, to the point whereby now some of them are estranged from the parents. They're adults, so, it's fine, but they don't speak to the parents, have no desire to speak to them. And that's mostly due to the fact that my father and his brothers and sisters, they took on a certain operating system from my grandparents that has left a lot. This is totally me making assumptions based on what I see and my knowledge of working with people and so on. But the lack of love and support that they experienced growing up has left some voids within their own self-perception, let's say, which has then led to certain behaviors, which has then led, in my opinion, to the estrangement and some of the other things I just mentioned. Now, if you think about myself, I want to have children within the next year or two, let's say. Now, had I not chosen to do the work on myself and break the cycle and say, do you know what? No fucking way, quite frankly. I am not going to tolerate this. I am not going to have that kind of relationship with my father. I am not going to feel this particular way. I am not going to continue to sabotage myself and live on the sidelines like I did for 27, 28, 29 years of my life. Had I not took a stand, primarily for myself at that time, but had I not took a stand, then what would have been the case for my kids and their kids, my grandkids, and so on? That decision, or lack of decision, really, well, regardless, it's a decision whether I decide to do nothing or do something. I'm still deciding, right? That decision is something that 100% will have been felt generations to come. Because, like one of my great friends says, what you don't take on, you pass on. I chose to take it on, so I didn't have to pass it on. You've done a lot. You've done tons of work as well. And it's so true. You will die. You will die. Now, whatever this means to you, you will die. It may be, hopefully not, but tomorrow, maybe in a week, maybe in 50 years, maybe in 70 years, maybe in whatever. But let's not forget the fact that we all will die. We don't have all the time in the world. We like to think we've got all the time in the world, but we don't. So instead of waiting and delaying things, thinking that, well, do you know what, I'll get to that thing in the future, a future that isn't promised, a future that we don't know we actually have, a future that really just means that all we're doing is delaying our own happiness and prolonging our pain in this particular moment, why not just make the decision to go after or be or do or have whatever it is you want right now, because you will die. And that means appreciate the moment, seize the moment, take that inspired action, have that conversation, be the man, the father, the husband, the entrepreneur that you know you can be. You know it. There's no doubt in your mind. If you're listening to this podcast, it's because you are somebody who is committed to growth. Whether you want to take the fast path and take action on what we share and get to wherever you want to go quicker, or the slow path and just digest and digest and digest. You're still committed to growth. It just depends on the rate at which you want to grow and whether you really want to take what we're sharing with you right now and really just consider it for a second. Really just consider it. Okay, so if I continue to live as I am today, what impact is that going to have on my family, on the people I love, 7 generations from now? Are they still going to be paying the price? Is the pain going to be carried on? Or am I going to be the one that sets a new direction, a new path for the family to follow, so that in 7 generations' time, they're completely flourishing? Our family's name is something that is associated with greatness. It could quite easily be that way. But it starts right here and now with the decision. And we often just lose sight of that, don't we, so easily? Just get so busy and caught up in whatever, social media, emails, meetings. You got to take a step back to consider this.
Absolutely phenomenal. Wow. Tim, such a great question. As you're speaking, even though we do this work, it always gives us time to reflect as well. And it's what we call, thinking time. Such a beautiful thing. Guys, what if you knew you were going to die tomorrow or next week or next month? It's going to happen someday, right? We don't get to choose that date per se. What is it you're putting off? What is it in the area of your relationships, your health, yourself, your wealth, your business? What is it you're putting off? And the idea that, someday it'll be better. Someday I'll do it. Someday I'll go meet Tim in person at the activation method or the alpha reset or one of the events. Someday I'll go do that. And you're just putting things off over and over again as excuses rather than living for the moment and seizing the moment. Tim, what are a couple things these guys can do right now?
Just take a moment. First thing, I don't know what you're doing right now, whether you're driving or in the gym or whatever, but make a commitment to yourself to come back to this episode at a time when you're able to be still with it. Come back to it with a journal, with a pen, and just be with it. Be with it. Give yourself an hour. Give yourself 2 hours and just be with this concept. You will die. Okay, I'm going to die. So what is it? What am I holding back from? If I was to give myself complete permission to be, do, and have everything that I deserve and desire, what would that be? Maybe it's some conversations you get to have that you're putting off. Maybe it's a move in business that you are holding back from because you're so focused and stuck on the now. Maybe it's coming clean to your wife or your kids. Maybe it's work-life balance. Maybe, I don't know what it is. This is for you to find out. And then from there, I encourage you to not leave the site of that journaling without taking some form of action. That might be a message or a phone call to the person you want to have a conversation with, inviting them for a coffee. If they live on the other side of the world or the other side of America or whatever, then arrange a time to Skype them. Do something to set the wheels in motion in alignment with this commitment to change that you're making to yourself. Maybe it's, like Doug says, maybe it's to come to the Alpha Reset. So head over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom. Watch several minutes of that video on there, case studies of all of the men, and then you'll see it. A button for you to book in a call with me. Go ahead, do that. Let's have a chat. Whatever it is, I urge you not to continue to delay your own needs. The men that I speak with that come into the program, that we work with, the common habit that they all have is that they put their needs last, which is a really strange dichotomy because on one hand, their wives think that they're selfish because all they do is ever, work and think about business. But on the flip side, behind all that, they don't do anything for themselves at all. All they do is work, and they believe they're working to build the dream for the family and the wife and the kids and so on. They've often given up their hobbies. Their health has fallen by the wayside. They're not investing in their relationships. They feel empty and heavy and unhappy. And when it comes to moments like this, when you get to give something to yourself and make a decision, you've got to break that habit of putting your needs on the back burner. You've got to bring them forward, because the people in your life that you love about can only get the best of you when you're getting the best of yourself. So give yourself this space, this time, revisit, journal, and take some action.
Excellent steps. Well, Tim, thanks as always for sharing your wisdom with the other men. I always get a lot out of our conversations. Guys, until next time, have an amazing day. Take action, and we'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.